There we go. Okay, you're good.
Okay, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 18th Audit Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. I apologize for the late start. We will go right into public comment. If anybody from the public would like to address the committee.
Well, we're basically here about the scoreboards for the baseball field for the grant that we got from Senator Markham. And we're hoping that we don't need this so-called seven-digit number we've been needing all along, which is what held it up for a year and a half. Come to find out, and speaking with Mark, that we do not, they can install them, so we don't need the number. So they can be installed by the school, and it saves us waiting. And it's a 5 to possibly 6 to 8 week install from start to finish. So we're really looking to move on this because the school is falling apart at the seams.
I want to say it like that. I'm gonna be 78. I'd like to see them go. After working 2 years.
And just so you know, we are working on other things with a big building company in the area. I don't know if they're gonna go for anything. I was just in touch with them again this week, and they're being a little bit more optimistic since they don't have to redo the whole ball field. Because I was telling them that you may get a capital improvement, which we're hoping Margie will take it from there, because you know, the taxes in Kent, that's not going through. Not really. It's
Do
sad
you think that they're having a meeting tonight?
in Kent, right?
In Kent?
Yeah, about piercing the
Because
tax cap.
they can't do the cap and it's going to raise our taxes 6% in the town of Kent. I came home last year after being away for a month, and they did a revalve, and my taxes went up $1,600. I'm by myself, you know, on a fixed income. It's a lot of money. 6% coming into town of Kent on top of the 1,600. I don't know. And you know, Kent is the place where you get shot down all the time.
The school will get shut down by that.
If
They don't.
I don't know how many
access to
other
move
people,
anymore, and it's gonna hurt everyone.
you know, but I'm really estimating I'm looking at $2,400 total in my taxes going up to 1 year. And I can't, you know, that might be the thing that, you know, does it for me, but I'm trying, so.
No, we're very sensitive to the fact we know Kent is half of our residents and tax base. We know that Kent's been hit hard, especially the last 2 years and with the reassessment. So we've been discussing the past couple meetings on working through what a 0% tax levy increase at the school district would look like. Unfortunately, we can't control what the town or county does, but we can work with the school budget and our role here as board members. So that's why we'll be continuing to discuss a 0% levy for the
See,
school
even with
budget.
the school tax, my town tax,
Right.
I get no exemptions, I get enhanced star from, you know, on the school, and my husband was disabled vet, so I get 2 exemptions there. My town tax is almost as high as my school tax because I don't get exemptions in the town of Kent.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point, and I do want to emphasize, you mentioned, we don't know how many people are facing this, but it's a lot more than just you. We've heard from a number of other
I'm
people
sure it's
in very
large,
similar
but
situations,
Kent is
and,
also
you know, I'm in Carmel, and
I'm in
even,
Carmel
we had
as well,
we just saw the reassessment raise ours, and it's important because when we voted on past tax bases for the district, it was based on the older assessed values of the houses, frankly. And even so, we found that there were other sources of income, other sources of, you know, interest and so forth, that we were in a better financial position than we were when we voted. I think, and Ken's gonna race over here and elbow me in a second, I think we should be evaluating the possibility of tax relief, not just the 0%. And the reason I'm saying that is exactly because of this situation. People's taxes are going up. We have a very large percent of the community on fixed income. We have a very large percentage of the community at or below the poverty line. And I think it's reasonable to say, what can we do to help compensate for the fact that we took this percentage of a pie that was this big, and then there was a massive reassessment across the county, and the pie is not this big. Do we really need the same percentage?
But what we were saying is, as far as the scoreboards, because that's what we're here.
Yeah.
So the grant coming in, it was 2 years ago, and
And then they
it's-
actually dropped the price $2,000. We
Yeah.
were talking earlier.
And it's, the scoreboard on the baseball field has not been working for 12 years.
Yeah, well, listen, we could pick, I'll show Ken the diagrams, we got the
Right.
mock-ups, and we could go forward with
Right.
those.
And then if we can get, if in 6 weeks you could get it, put it up. If you get the capital improvements, which would be great, because I never.
Well, that's in the
I
early
would
stage.
never
Yeah, and the worst case
Against-
scenario, we thought.
put it up and then you can move it,
Because we really need to
those
have,
kids
these kids have
just-
some pride.
Yeah.
There's no more pride left here.
Yeah.
I hear it from my grandson. They have no pride. They're like, what is happening to the school?
So
What is
we
happening to
have
the
a
sports
scoreboard that,
programs? No
sorry.
gymnastics. There's so many crazy things going on with the scoreboard. It's a simple one, and if it needs to be moved, maybe we put it at the middle school, and then they can start enhancing those fields later on. But if the capital grant comes through, because I'm afraid with what Margie said, it's not gonna come through. Because people are gonna fight it
but
like
you
crazy.
need the capital improvements. I'm
Yes.
here-
well, we're
I'm
also
here-
looking at, years out and other things
Right.
where we
I'm
need
here
to
55 years, that middle school is exactly the same. The
Exactly.
only thing that's done to the middle school is they cut the grass. That's it. The divots, everything's exactly the same.
And the
So,
fields really are
you're
terrible
right,
out there
we
too.
need-
We've been to baseball games up
We
there.
need-
You gotta-
So just so
If
you
you're
know,
handicapped, you're not going.
we have
You can't to the other side
proposal
of
for
the
3
field.
scoreboards.
Mhm.
One will go in the high school gym, and one in softball, one in baseball.
Okay.
So we will work with these 5 people to see how we can get that moving, and if we could install in-house, that saves us a lot of money.
Mhm.
As well as, we'll have a first baseball team in 12 years, first softball team in 12 years that has a working scoreboard.
And also basketball and
Yeah,
volleyball are gonna be covered through the same grant. So we're looking at really a lot of things being accomplished. And maybe if they do have to be moved eventually, if something great comes through.
Let's see,
I'm gonna move it myself. That's what's gonna happen.
Anything you want to add to that, Kim?
Thank you.
No, thank you, ladies, for your tireless work in pursuit of this, and, there's been a lot of obstructions with missing, what's the number called, IDEA number?
Yeah,
There was some kind of
7-digit
state number, they kept telling me, I need this number, I would contact Chris, he was not getting back to me. So we had no correspondence of what this number was, and finally I called K&J, which is the company Chris was using, to find out it was a refurbished sign, he was gonna refurbish what we had, not put the new. I don't know where he was going, and he has not returned phone calls, so I can't get any other information from him.
And right now, the
We want brand
grant
new,
is
that's what we would
between
grant
50
for.
and 75,000.
Right, I think we could work this out.
And I hope so,
Thank you.
yes.
No,
Thank you so
you.
much. Yeah.
So that grant is 51,000.
51?
So you know.
Mhm.
Any other public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to our first agenda item. Thank you for sharing your comments with us. We'll move to the first agenda item, debt service review.
So first thing I want to tell you about is our debt service. So if you have the agenda, debt service reviews, the first thing, you should be looking at the page that has green and yellow line across it.
Mhm.
So that green line going all the way across is next year's expenses for bonds. It goes on to 3 pages. The first page is our construction bonds. The second page is our energy performance contracts. And the third page is our bus leases. I want to take you to where we are in our totality of our debt right now. So if you look at the bottom right on page 1, you can see that the total principal and interest as of next July, we're talking about the 26-27 budget in these conversations. The total principal and interest outstanding is $19.9 million. The following year, in 26-27, we will be spending $3.2 million. And then in the next year, $1.9 million. You can see that it shows $3.3 million in 26-27, and then it drops to $1.9 million 9, you can see that there's a big drop in our debt service in the 27-28 year. And you need to keep 27-28 in mind, because that's the time we're possibly keying in for the first time there would be any debt if we did an athletic bond or a bond for the bus garage. On the second page, you can see, again, the green line is next year, the yellow line is the year after. You can see that we have $6 million outstanding in our energy performance contracts on the bottom right, and that we have $680,000 due next year and the same amount due the following year. You can also see, if you look up on page 2, when these end. You can see that the time when these end, you're not seeing the years all together, but you can just take a look at that. The next page is the bus leases. And the bus leases as they are now end in 2 years. 26, 27, you can see that we have $639,000 due, and then $278,000 in the 27, 28 year, and then the bus leases are gone. We're gonna talk about the new bus leases in a few minutes. But the existing bus leases will be gone again at the same time as we might possibly be talking about a bond for capital improvements. Next thing I want to tell you about.
Ken, just real quick on the
Yep.
first page, so with the construction, the 2014 issue, that is the 2004 or thereabouts bond.
Yes.
That authorized the expansion on the high school, middle school.
And I remember the question from a year ago that you asked me on that, yes.
The 2022 reissue, is that with the 2012 bond?
Yes.
Okay, and then what is, okay.
Then the
so-
others are dormitory authority bonds.
Okay. Very good.
So now I want to talk about something that's probably new for all of you. You can take this little page, it's called maximum cost allowance. Maximum cost allowance, called MCA by the State Education Department, is the maximum that you're allowed to spend for construction in a school building in any 5-year period and still get state aid. If you exceed that amount, this includes capital costs as well as architectural or other costs. If you exceed that amount, you don't get state aid on the amount you exceeded. If you look all the way to the right, you can see that, for instance, at Kent Elementary, we can spend $14 million. Kent Primary, $19 million, and so on. So we will never be approaching our maximum cost allowance for any project or projects that we might want to do in the years to come. And remember that this is what it is now, and some of the projects are still on the books and will expire after another few years, making this even more. So I just want to point this out to you. It's something that's important. The architects and the state look at this, and I do have the details of each building if you're interested in seeing exactly how it breaks down. It's all based on population of the building, the capacity of the building, and particularly the number of special ed kids in the building, because that increases the amount that you're allowed to spend for renovations within the building. Next thing is our bonding capacity. Our bond maximum that we could ever borrow is $50 million. So we know now that with the $7.5 million that we just took out for the safety and security bond, that we can also have another $23.5 million. This is the number I've been talking to you about for quite a while now. We can have an additional $23.5 million in bonding for whatever we want with no increase in taxes from what they are today. And part of that is because, as you saw in the first document we looked at, the debt is going down so much in the next couple of years that we could have the capacity to do a bond for athletics or for the bus garage and have no increase in taxes. So I just wanted that point to be made. The status of reserves. If you look on page 2 and 3 of the budget document that you have, my big budget document, nothing has really changed in the reserves. You can see, if you look at column H, you can see what I'm suggesting we spend next year in each of those reserve categories. So for example, I'm showing $1 million for employee benefit for next year. 200,000 for tax certiorari reserves, $1 million for insurance reserves. I want to make sure you see that, because that's what it is today to create the revenue that we need so that we don't have to increase taxes. So these reserves are where the extra money is going to come from. That's new money that we need. And if you look on page 3, in the yellow on column H, you can see that I'm proposing $3.6 million in reserve be used next year. It could be more if we needed to, if we wanted to. It could be less, but that's my estimate right now. And remember, we have contracts that are expiring, but all of my numbers make allowance for every possible contractual expense for next year. And we're not going to go into that in detail now, but just so you know that I have made provision in all of these numbers for contractual increases for next year.
And then, Ken, two things I just want to draw the community's attention to, those listening at home. Of course, we referenced it earlier. This is, hasn't changed from last time. In the top right, it's still operating under a no tax levy increase. And also a point that you brought up earlier was the safety and security bond. I think we're 4 million or thereabouts under budget.
We are 7.5 million. The bond was 11.8, so we're $4.3 million under budget. So we're not borrowing that money.
Excellent.
And that is actually a part of what increases the possibility to borrow from 20 to a little bit more than 20, because we are not borrowing that money because we were so far under budget in that bond.
Thank you.
I want to call your attention to line 729. That's page 19. I've talked about the leasing of buses. If you look at in yellow on page 7, line 729, over on the right-hand side, you see $188,000. That's what the cost of the leasing of the buses will be next year and for the next 5 years going forward. There's one payment in the last year of the lease. That's another $30,000 or $40,000 more, but that's the final payment. Buses go back. Why aren't we buying buses? We're just leasing them because we have to be careful not to be owning a bunch of new buses at the point where electric buses are required. So we need to be very careful, mindful of that, and lease the big buses. The small buses are not a problem. And when they're done, we don't get much money for these buses. But we should get, this lease calls for us to get $39,000 at the end of the lease for the 6 vehicles we're getting. 20 big buses and one 20-passenger bus. I'm sorry, 5 big buses and 1 smaller bus.
And then some secondary benefits rather of the bus leasing program is it's reduced the age of our fleet, and it's also brought down the repair line item of expense to repair
That's
buses.
a good point. And if we can pave the parking lot as we're headed towards trying to do, that will make a big difference in the condition of the buses because they will not rust out from the item 4, because most of the parking lot, or at least half the parking lot, is not paved at all. And yes, it does reduce the parts expenses, the repair expenses, and it allows us to use our existing garage facilities, every part of that for these new vehicles.
Also just provides for a much more reliable fleet.
Much more reliable. So you notice that lease for the bus is on page 729, it's under transportation, but all of the other bus leases are under debt service. And I have written to the state about that because I want to make sure that what we're doing ends up getting state aided, but we also have to worry about transportation aid. So the only thing in leases that's on that page, on that line 729, is the new lease. All the old leases are under debt service, and we're waiting for an answer from the state as to where we can put it. And so I may have to move it to another location, but the money won't change. I just want to mention that we are going to have at 6:30 or thereabouts, we're going to have our audit presentation by our auditors, the same presentation or shorter than you saw a week and a half ago, and that will be for the public, our audit from the prior year. Dr. Gorman is going to talk briefly about our budget status, our building status, what we've sent out to the buildings.
Before we do, just one note.
Yep.
For folks who want more detail on the audit, the meeting last Saturday was recorded. You can see it on the website. So if you see tonight's presentation and your curiosity is piqued for more, you can go and see that as well.
Yes, there's a lot more detail from last Saturday than there will be tonight. This will be a much higher level look at it. Dr. Gorman.
All right, so as we've talked the last couple of months, we've put in a new process for building administrators and teachers and schools to sort of assess their needs and talk about what their projections are for next year. And I've been sort of on tour with department chairs and with principals. We had a Q&A session, we had a principals meeting with Mike, myself, and Ken, and just answering all questions. And I think the best thing that this process is doing is it's sort of like telling the story for the new administration about what's going on, what the history was. And I'm getting comments like, well, that was cut and we're really short in this area. I said, well, put it out there so we could at least have a conversation. This is a new administration with the three of us, and it doesn't have to be what was, and it doesn't have to be what might be, but it needs to be what currently is. And so I've been advocating department chairs to move forward with new curriculum software. For example, there's a teenage health program that was just piloted or dabbled with in a title grant last year. That's a very sensitive area. In my professional opinion, we should have like a solid program that supports teaching teenage sexuality to kids in our schools, as opposed to teacher-made resources and grabbing and pulling from things. Through my experiences, that's a hot spot. So I'm encouraging teachers to seek out quotes and work with me. We brought in the vendor the other day, he did a demonstration. So this whole process is really revealing a lot about the district. I met with the music department and they said that, one of my just wonderings when I got here was, why don't we have a marching band in the district? And then they said that, well, we used to even have a pep band. I said, say more, what's a pep band? They said, well, at football games, they have the band playing during the games. I said, that's wonderful. Why don't we have it anymore? It was cut back in the day. I said, well, let's at least put it back on the table now and have a discussion. It's in the contract and let's do that. So this has been a really good process. It's also been a process of accountability. So the last 2 weeks before winter break, Michael, Ken, myself, and Liz will meet with each principal and their administrative team, and they'll have to defend their budget. So they'll have to be able to speak on everything that's going on in their building. I don't believe that's happened in the past. So I've had to sort of coach some people in this process up and explain to them that it's more of an internal document and it's a document that we'll share with the board as well. And they've been sort of like, we've never done this like this. I said, well, that's okay, because next year we'll be able to look back and see what we did this year. And if I tried to do that from last year, at least coming into the district since July, I can't find those types of resources or information. So this system is pretty healthy. It's led to some really healthy conversations. And I've met elementary liaisons, middle school liaisons, principals, and I get high school curriculum department chairs next week as well. So all is well.
We reassured him that it wouldn't be like an episode of Shark Tank. That's what you say. Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gorman, for the update. We're very thankful for all the work that you've done in that regard, on that topic, and we're looking forward to a very successful, transparent, user-friendly budget season ahead. So thank you.
Even more transparent than last year.
That's hard to top.
So we want to talk about the boundary. There's a Toll Brothers development going in.
Mhm.
And we met briefly with the Brewster board. I think it was the superintendents of Brewster and here, and a couple of other people met briefly a long time ago.
It was in early 25.
Yeah. So Brewster has now met with the Carmel assessor. to try to work out a boundary agreement for who gets the kids, who gets the money, and who keeps the land or loses land. I'm only mentioning this tonight. We're going to do a thorough review of this on December 2nd at this meeting. And we'll have information. What I have is Brewster's presentation to the Carmel assessor. And Brewster, it may not be what we think is the way things should be. It looks like we get all of the senior citizen development, which means we don't have kids, but we get money, which helps to offset. We don't get more money than we have as our taxes. It just reduces the bill for everybody else in some way. But there's also a discussion of the kids. And do we want kids, or do we want money, or do we want both? Our enrollment is declining, and I remain concerned about the subject of foundation aid. Foundation aid is under something called hold harmless, where no matter what happens to your enrollment, you are held harmless. You do not lose your foundation aid, our major aspect of aid. I believe we're okay for this next year because the governor is running for re-election, and to knock out something as important as foundation aid, hold harmless, would be tough. But the years to come after that, we just don't know. So I'm concerned about that, and so we need to be mindful that we need kids and not just money.
And as I shared with you in the board notes, they're predicting up to over 160 potential students living here. The one thing that's really good about this development is nobody wants to see a split neighborhood where if you live in one house, you go to one district and so forth. So I look forward to, bringing this to fruition and seeing, where it goes, and also checking in with you folks to keep you informed.
Thank you. Ken, is the proposal right now different from the Carmel assessor's original proposal back in early
I
25?
don't think so. The line may have moved just a minuscule amount, but as I mentioned to you, what is a line? Is a line is a line the size of a truck? What is a line? And there's no real definition for it. But what that may sound silly, but the Carmel assessor raised that question with me. What does a boundary line mean? I do have something I can give you if you want. It's the Brewster's version of what should be. And I was going to wait till December 2nd so we have a better look at that.
Thank you. No, the reason I was curious is because back when we discussed this the first time, Brewster was hesitant to accept the assessor's proposal. Carmel was fine with it. Brewster also brought up points. I think they also discussed this at their public meeting about a week after we had met with them. They were concerned about an influx of students in their district. So myself and former trustee Paraskiva said that we're more than happy to take all the students. And we never heard back after that.
That kind of disappeared. Because of the way the lines are drawn, it would have had to have been redrawn for us to get the kids. The way the lines are drawn, we don't get kids. If we get it, it's a very small amount, possibly 18 kids. But Brewster gets the majority of the kids.
But to the superintendent's point, if no change is made, if we go with the line where it is before this property plan was laid down, there would be single rows of townhouses where two people are next door neighbors in attached houses, go to different districts.
Yep.
There would even be some townhouses where the line goes right through the living room, and who knows what they got.
Well, I can tell you that means you have to give the kid the bedroom that's in the district.
But it's sort of what that's.
So a lot more work and discussion needs to go on.
So to be continued on December 2nd, but you'll be receiving something on that.
It's great.
You have, there's one big picture of the bus garage there.
Okay.
This is the architect's first rendering of what it would look like if we were to do something. This does not include, I guess that picture may include the addition, but the addition is out. There's not going to be any addition now at all. We're only talking about pushing back to be able to park more buses and paving the parking lot and repairing the fence or replacing the fence. That's the totality of the project as we plan today. And that project contemplates, that photo contemplates more buses than we actually have. And that area in green behind the buildings is actually a a driveway part. And they've removed the fence, so I met with them last Friday, they're redoing this for us to take a look at. And remember that the funds for this would not affect taxes, it would not be a part of the budget. It is a part of a capital reserve that we have, which can only be drawn down, it can't be increased other than interest that we earn on it. And the interest this year was $168,000. And that capital reserve fund can be used for this work. It would be more than sufficient, there's, I think, $3.2 million in that fund now, and we're not talking about spending anything like that to do this paving work. So more to come on that when we have a better drawing, and possibly we should bring the architects in for a look at this when we have this done. So this will be a capital project. It'll be aided by the state as regular state aid. It'll go through that whole process. It has to be approved by the voters to use the money, even though we have the money. So that would be at the, if we do that, that would be at the annual vote on May 20th. And following that, this would go to the state, and they believe that this work could be done. The approvals could be done pretty quickly because it's a relatively simple type of project.
So just to reiterate some of the main points you brought up, Ken. So this is money that the district already has in a capital reserve fund. It would not require any new taxes to be levied. It would be need to have voter authorization to draw down on that fund, which is in essence a lockbox for purposes such as this.
Yes.
And then if those funds that, again, we already have, because we've built up the capital reserve fund, we would be able to pave approximately close to half the parking lot that remains unpaved, repair the fence along the property line of the transportation facility, and add additional parking spaces.
Right, so we'd be pushing back beyond the fence of the Kent Elementary School to create more parking.
That's where the ledge is currently?
Yes.
Okay.
You can see that now. You can see the part where you can see the fence in that big green, well, you can see on the bottom left, that's the new parking area.
Mhm.
So that would relieve some of the parking problem we have along the property line with homeowners adjoining the transportation building, the office building. So we're hoping to relieve some of that.
It would also create just a safer environment for our drivers and aides to walk across, especially in the winter. It'd be easy to clean. So there's a lot of advantages to this.
Excellent.
And just so you know, on that score, we have just, Mark has just finished installing our new snow removal for the big buses. Nobody needs to climb up on the buses anymore. They just drive under this, it just brushes off the top of the bus, and it's adjustable for different heights of vehicles. All the big buses are all the same height, but it's adjustable, and that was in this year's budget. We spent $34,000 on it. What was planned was what it was. And so it's a much safer for the drivers and for the mechanics who take care of getting the buses ready in bad weather for their trips.
Good. Well, the board was happy to include that last year. Thank you for bringing that to us. And we're glad to hear that it's
Coming along. There's some wire in this.
In progress.
Obviously, so it's coming along.
excellent.
What's it like if you're driving a bus under
There's a pulley system off the battery that adjusts it up and down.
Bus is sweet. Kind of like a World War II mines.
So you have something there which I've already mentioned, but I'll mention again. You have something called amortization schedule, single page.
Mhm.
That's actually the bus lease, and you can see where it shows 188,000 each year for a bunch of years. And then the attachment is from the State Education Department having to do with our next steps. I just thought I'd give you the email from the state talking about what we need to do next.
Thank you.
Again, this is up for approval tonight on the agenda.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Ken, do we know, it's always a point of interest, the land sale. I know they were waiting on 4 approvals I know where they are.
Just spoke to the several attorneys involved, of course.
Mhm.
And I just spoke to all of them, and these approvals still aren't done yet. And I'm concerned because the budget we're in now
Mhm.
contemplates this taking place this year because it reduces our debt service by $276,000 because of the land sale, and it also gives us $300,000 in cash from the sale.
Mhm.
So I'm very concerned that this happened now because it would be a bad scene for us not to have this tax reduction, this debt service reduction, which I was told, build in, it's gonna be fine, it'll be done last July, of course. But now they're saying in the next few weeks that they're hopeful that this will be finished.
Are they still waiting on 4 approvals, or that's down to
I don't
2?
know how many.
Okay.
John, I'll search my records and include it in the Friday notes, but
Excellent.
I think there was also something that the buyer needed
Mhm.
to be approved in order for it to go through, if I remember correctly.
Very good.
And of course,
You want
that adds,
step
that
on.
puts them on the tax rolls, which
Yes.
is very good for us.
Spans our tax base.
Spends our tax base.
And also, who doesn't like cranes?
Is there any comments from the committee? Any comments, questions, points that you'd like to bring up, gentlemen?
I do have a question from a member of the public who's watching remotely.
Sure.
And Ken, this is for you, just, first, there's appreciation expressed for the information you've been putting on the website. This is really a huge step forward in transparency. Information that in the past was coming out over time. You guys have been doing an amazing job of putting the monthly updates, so thank you for that. There was a question about the final October status report on the page. And the question there was, there were a bunch of negative appropriations that were added between the October 22nd and the final of the month. What do those, what does that mean? What do those reflect?
So there's no such thing as a negative appropriation.
Exactly, so hence, why do we say a
So-
negative number in that?
It just means that at that moment, that budget code
Mhm.
is in the negative. And there
Right.
has to be a transfer
Yep.
to make it in the positive. An example could be through BOCES, where we have special ed kids, and a kid comes from one type of placement to another type of placement, where it's private placement to a BOCES placement, and we have an additional bill that we have to pay BOCES, it could run in the red. That's why you see all the budget transfers that you get for each board meeting. When anything exceeds $9,900, we have to bring it to you for approval, and that's all that means. All that is a snapshot, it's not a moving picture.
So maybe
And I think
they,
it's important to say it that way, that it's just a snapshot. The next day, it could look different.
right, so we may have money coming in from aid or something, or we may have money transfers coming up that would affect that.
Money coming in from aid would not
Okay.
change that. That's,
We would
the
sit down
revenue
and
side is
separate it too.
completely separate from the expense side.
Got it.
So revenue sits by itself, additional revenue, like from a field trip, doesn't go back into the budget. Once the budget is used, it stays used. But this would be appropriations that require change, moves from other budget lines. And we do, as we do the budget, make sure we have enough to be able to do that when we need to.
Understood, and then that feeds into the next year's budgeting process and stuff like that.
Yes.
It's also a reconciliation process. So let's say we had people who, we budgeted, and I'm just gonna use some hypothetical numbers, $5,000 per professional development, but we had a lot more people sign up for really great classes and we wanna support that. And now we owe $2,000 on top of the $5,000. That would show a $2,000 deficit that we would then reconcile by
That makes
transferring
sense.
money to that from another budget location.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other comments from the committee? Anyone from the public wish to
Yeah.
address the
Well,
committee?
two, one about the negative appropriations, because I looked at that. And in my mind, when I look at that, we're only, 3 months into the budget year? It just seemed like, and it wasn't just the BOCES money, I noted that, and it's not just tuition ones, I get that. It just seemed like it would cause people to question, how we're budgeting, because I don't want to say appropriation, how we're budgeting the money. That's one thing. The second thing that I have a question about is for the transportation facility. I know we're selling the property, but I guess my question is this, we're not doing anything to the transportation building, correct? We're leaving it as it is? I mean, is that,
For now.
For now.
Until, yes, for now.
okay. So if that's an acceptable thing, I'm just not sure why we ever went down the path of needing to do something else there anyway. I guess I'm just confused that the community went through all this back and forth. I know this was before your time, Ken, but if the building there itself is good, which I've been in that building and I think it could use some work, why we wouldn't be moving forward on doing something like that. I get that the parking is an issue, I get it. I also get that paving is an issue and it prolongs the life of the bus and all that stuff, and I totally get the snow removal and all that kind of stuff, but I guess I guess it just bothers me that it's not a priority, that something on the building itself would be done. I've been in there, so, yeah, that's all.
So I can respond to that and tell you that the people who run the garage, the foreman of the garage, insist that they do not need a new facility, that perhaps some improvements over the long haul or short haul would be necessary. We are air conditioning that building so that they are more comfortable during the summer. The pit that we have in there is legal. We would not be able to have a pit anywhere else because you can't build a new pit. The building that was constructed by our staff to hold smaller vehicles works well. The only thing we might be talking about doing is building a concrete pad so that we could jack up buses outside. You can't jack them up on asphalt, it has to be on concrete. That would be the only thing. And I've met with them, and we've talked about it. We've talked about the new windows the new windows are in that building. And with the air conditioning, we, including the people that work there, feel that that building is adequate at this time. If we go to electric buses, that's another story.
Thank you. Anybody else from the community wish to address the committee with comments, questions, concerns? Okay, well, thank you everyone for being with us today. Please, for our staff here, take back to your departments, word from this committee and the board, how much we appreciate all the work that you do on a daily basis for the efficient operation of this district and for the benefit of all of our students. Your work is truly appreciated and valued. So thank you, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see that inside.
I'm gonna bring it to Joanne.